Hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode of the Creator Come Up podcast. Today, my guest is none other than Caya of Slidebean. Maybe you've seen some of their videos online talking about some entrepreneurial, startup, tech world, forensic files type videos. And more importantly, you probably have seen Caya himself. Being both the CEO as well as one of the founders, he has a background in starting a handful of businesses that have led him to where he is today with Slidebean. Like I've said before, not only is he the CEO as well as one of the founders, he also plays a huge role in being the face of their very successful YouTube channel. He and his team are a bunch of wizards when it comes to marketing, so this whole chat was a very nice deep dive into the medium that they've created of both marketing and traffic. This conversation was very insightful for myself, and I hope for you as well, and even taught me that I really need to up my marketing game a little bit. But all in all, it's all good because at the end of it, I came away with a lot of great ideas to help push my own marketing side and career path. And again, hopefully you do too. So without further ado, Caya from Slidebean. You're my second person ever interviewed ever. So this is they put the kid that's a little bit more talkative and the American on. So that's gotta love it.
That's
but
fine.
You moved to the States like 10 years ago, right? Is that your?
I don't live in the States, contrary to popular belief. But
Wait,
this is
really?
this is a bit intentional. So we we understand how important it is for us to be a U.S. company. When we started Slidebean, we figured like this needs to be a U.S. company. But I'm Costa Rican. My co-founders are as well, and I still live in Costa Rica. So we have part of the team in New York. We now have a company apartment in New York. So part of the team just flies there and lives in New York, like different cycles. So I'm there all the time. But no, I don't officially live in New York.
Yo, I did not know that. You could have just. So is your whole studio and everything in Costa Rica too?
Yeah, that's right.
Wow, I would have never guessed. The guys, I don't know. So the other guys that I work for, they're like big fans and whatnot. They watch all of your videos. We were going through all that stuff earlier today, going through a bunch of the questions, and he started scrolling through the Slidebean YouTube channel, and I was like, dude, you watch every single one of these? He's like, yeah. So but like I wonder if they probably know that. I guess I'm just talking out loud. But the one thing I do want to talk about the YouTube channel though is like, did you intend to be the face of this company? Did you intend to make that a thing?
No, man, like that happened a little bit by coincidence. We started the YouTube channel. The reason why we started was our first huge successful marketing channel was SEO. So we figured our way through SEO. We managed our website to rank our website and to get the first results in the keywords that we really cared about. But then there's only so many searches about the topics that we talk about. So there's only so many people that need a pitch deck and are actively looking for that.
Sure.
Or that are raising money. So we figured, well, how can we get to these guys in some other places? So we thought of YouTube first as a search engine where we could answer these questions that the same people were asking on Google. Well, maybe they'll ask them on YouTube as well. And then, yeah, man, it was a bit by coincidence that I started kind of hosting these videos. I guess I'm not too bad in front of the camera. I have a background in video production, so that's why the little team that we assembled from the existing Slidebean team at the time, like we took a couple people that had a background on production, and we brought them in and say like, hey, let's do like this little side task and help us make a few videos. So that's how it all started. Sure. Did not expect to become the face of the company this way, which has been a thing now that the YouTube channel has gotten so big.
Now, how much content and traffic comes from that YouTube now that you guys have built it up and it's become relatively big? Like, I don't know, like you have the 100,000 subscriber plaque and everything like that. You're pushing over 300. Like that's in each video is getting quite a bit of views on that. How much of the traction to Slidebean do you actually pull from that?
It's very hard to measure, and that's one thing that we had to understand. So YouTube gets around 800,000 organic views per month. That's not counting the ads that we do because to retarget people and so on. And I would say that it is very likely our largest channel for demand generation and for exposing our brand. by all means, it's the largest. Our website gets around 300K visits per month. So YouTube just in itself is getting more than that. It's hard to measure how many of those views come from people who are watching multiple videos or just new people. But what we do know is that when we ask people, hey, how did you discover Slidebean? The answer we get most commonly is YouTube.
Sure. Now, so a lot of your content has almost kind of it's not directly influenced by Slidebean itself. So how did you make that decision to and this is coming from a personal question from what we're trying to do right now, is we are trying to come in from being a text-based video editor and whatnot to just creating some sort of just all-around content that anybody can come by, and it's not something that's very specific keyword focused. Everything is keyword focused, but I feel like you know what I mean. What?
No, I got you. So we the first videos that we made on YouTube were all about search terms that really had something direct to do with what we do, right? So if somebody's looking for a pitch deck or how does a convertible note work, or how does startup equity work at the early stage. So those are all very direct customers. From that video to becoming our customer, there's a very, very short path, because if you're looking for those topics, you're likely an entrepreneur who's trying to raise money. So, our product kind of fits perfectly in there. But there's only so many people that will watch that content, which is the problem we come across all the time, right? We sort of fill that answer, we filled the answers for pitch decks, and we filled the answers for convertible notes and startup fundraising, and we were ranking first or second in YouTube search for those keywords. So we're like, well, there's no more traffic that we can generate from that, and we had this idea. I was excited about YouTube, about what it could become. I guess I was a bit of a frustrated YouTuber before that, meaning I wanted my own channel, so I sort of mixed that up into the whole decision making, and figured, well, what if we make other content that a startup founder would watch? And that's when we came up with this Company Forensics series. So the first episode of Forensics was on WeWork, which was just this right in the middle, right? It's the story about this company that a lot of people know about, that's going through this whole press mess, Adam leaving the company and so on, but also who works out of a WeWork, a startup, right? So that was just in the middle of a company that would be interesting to founders, but also to a broader audience. And since we saw the success of these forensics teardowns I think there's a little bit of schadenfreude when people want to see how this company that they used to make fun of failed, like Juicero. So we just started generating content on that, and now that's become our top of the funnel on YouTube. So if you think of a funnel, people will probably discover us through a Company Forensics video on a topic, and then the YouTube algorithm will do the rest in pushing them to other content that might be interesting to them. And some of that content might be very startup-specific content, like pitch deck stuff, which is really the step before moving into our actual sign-up funnel.
Absolutely. I mean, I found myself really just binging your content, and I was trying to do a little bit of research prior to us chatting, just to kind of get an idea of everything that's going on. The guys really, like I said, the guys really know who you are and what you guys are all about. But I genuinely found myself just watching and watching and watching. So your method, and I wanted to ask you about that, because coming from a video creation standpoint, your videos are and I mean no offense by this, but they seem to be relatively simply made, but such high production value to them. So from what I've seen is it's a lot of you in front of a camera sitting in a studio, and then a lot of B-roll on top. Am I correct with that?
Yeah. So that was our first. Well, we've iterated over that method, and it depends on which videos you've seen. But the early videos were me in front of a studio, usually green screen, with some animation in the background. So people would appreciate the animation as an explainer, as an aid to explaining a complex topic. So that first iteration got people hey, these guys are doing some animation stuff. It's not your average talking head video. There's something extra to it.
Exactly.
We've evolved a little bit into B-roll. Obviously, B-roll is cheaper, faster than animation. So the moment when we wanted to produce more, we had to sort of sacrifice animation and replace that for B-roll.
Absolutely.
And that's fine. That works. It's a simple approach. I think the video people on YouTube care first and foremost about the story. And second, about the production value. It helps. Production helps retention. Production helps shareability. Like, well, this is a really cool video, I'm willing to share it, versus just a random talking head video, even though the story is great. So both go hand in hand, but story definitely first.
Sure. I mean, you're also a relatively busy person, so how much time consuming are these videos that you guys make? Because you're putting them out quite frequently. So how much of that do you have a hand in, and how much do you have like a full team pushing these things to get these out weekly?
Yeah. So right now, our production team is 6 people, I think.
Nice.
Including production guys, editing, and one screenwriter. So I still write about 25% of our videos, which are especially the startup related stuff, or topics that are really complex, like the blockchain video. I wrote that myself. Especially when we have to like sort of abstract this very complex idea into a simple explainer. Like we explained blockchain with subway cars. So that is a mess. You have to understand blockchain, and you sort of have to like do some design to figure out how to explain it with using something else. But right now, I'd say YouTube takes about 1.5 full days out of my week. So today is my production day. So today we're shooting a couple videos here in the studio. I record the podcast on Tuesdays. So I try to squeeze all that into Tuesday, which is a day that everybody else in the company knows that they can't probably reach me on Tuesdays.
Sure.
And then a couple more days for other stuff, follow-up meetings and planning topics and planning what we're going to talk about in the next few weeks and months.
Gotcha. Well, thank you for taking your Tuesday to talk to some random kid in Berlin, man. Like, I appreciate that hardcore. But one other thing that actually one of the guys wanted to ask was, they saw that you guys, they saw that you tried to put somebody else as the face of Slidebean and like cycle out some other people that were on camera, and apparently that didn't the audience didn't take too well to that. They really liked you over there. So what happened with that? I kind of personally want to know what the deal was with that.
Yeah, man, that's a little weird, because I guess I mean, I understand that people get used to seeing my face and and my narration style and so on. I also understand that the channel can't be connected exclusively to me. Like I look up to companies like Vox is probably one of my favorite YouTube channels or content channels or media channels. And what they do is they have hosts for different topics, right? Each one hosts something that they're really passionate about, something that they're an expert on. So they have like these different series within the Vox channel that are hosted by different people. Sure. So I think long term that's something that we would love to do, to have a channel that sort of behaves like that. And we started experimenting, and we've had 2 good experiments with that. We had Steve, who was one of our investors, part of Dream Adventures. He has a channel of his own. He's pretty good on camera. We go a long way. Like I met Steve probably maybe almost 10 years ago when I was starting my first company. So he had a channel, so he was motivated to be in our channel to get some subscribers over to his. Sure. And again, people, the audience loved him. I think we did a good job at introducing him. It was organic. Like, he was an expert on something that I wasn't an expert in, which is funding from the investor side. So that made sense. More recently, El Chang was a guest on a couple of our videos. We wanted to bring a woman into the channel as well and just see how that played. And also that experiment went well, and the audience liked her. I think she studied my narration style for a while, so she was able to sort of come up with something that was similar. I speak pretty fast, so people appreciated that. Yeah, the experiment that didn't work was Porik, who is our community manager and still is. And it was pretty shitty for him, because he had to read through the comments trashing him because he's the community manager. So that sucked a little bit. I think that I take a blame a little bit, because we didn't properly introduce him to the channel. We're all about experimenting, so we experimented a little bit with a different voice and even a different pace, because Porik speaks slower than me. And I coached him a little bit, but the audience didn't take, and we sort of tried it for a few videos and had to scratch it.
Sure. Yeah. The YouTube audience is always very fickle when it comes to anything change wise. I grew up watching a bunch of stuff, and whenever a host of a TV of a certain sketch show or any of them would change, it would be a pain in the ass. So everybody would hate it. So I wouldn't put too much blame on yourself, man. That's just the way you're dealing with a bunch of and a lot of times it's some younger people that just can't take it. But But with those channels and experimenting whatnot, you guys have been experimenting with different thumbnails recently, have you not? Like after you upload, you change it up and see what works. Have you found anything that worked better than others?
Yeah, apparently that's what the pros do. We saw a couple videos on Veritasium on how they experiment with thumbnails all the time, very scientifically the way they do it. So we've been doing that as well. Like it is a pretty common practice to test a thumbnail. It's not working as expected. Just change it. People resent it sometimes because they're like, "Oh, I thought I hadn't watched this video and I did." But yeah, overall, it's been a good experiment, and we've been able to sort of resuscitate a couple of videos that didn't perform as expected, and then after a thumbnail change, they did a lot better. So much of the YouTube success comes from the thumbnail. It's insane.
Really?
It's insane. Yeah.
Okay. What insight have you found so far? Just as a, taking notes, man. Like seriously.
There are two very good videos by Veritasium on this, but essentially you have to come up with something that's a little clickbaity, but not offensive clickbaity. Like it needs to sort of leave a question. Like if you give people the answer to the question on the thumbnail, they have it, so they won't click. But at the same time, if you make the thumbnail just too sensationalist, right? Like people will resent that, and we've seen that. We've gone too far a couple of times. We started this video. I mean, we produced this video the other day on how Apple Watch is killing or could be killing the Swiss watch industry, and we called that video "The Assassination of Swiss Watches by the Coward Apple." A reference to the movie "The Assassination of Jesse James by Coward Henry Ford," or the other way around. I don't know. But anyway, like if you get the reference, then it's fun. But if you don't, it's like, why are you calling Apple a coward? And people will blast us in the comments because of that.
Yeah. You can't go.
We did another
kids,
one,
man.
Exactly. We did another one on Moviepass. So the story of Moviepass was that it was really, really struggling, but sort of like the nail in the coffin was the release of Mission Impossible, because people wanted to watch the premiere and Moviepass wasn't working, couldn't redeem their tickets. So we used the title "How Tom Cruise Killed Moviepass," and that's just going too far, right? Because people didn't find the connection in the video. Maybe we talked a little bit about it too late. So that's like when we kind of crossed that line into clickbait that people resented. But it's a thin line, and you have to get just close enough so that people click it, but not cross
too far
it.
to create some issues with that. Yeah, no, that makes sense. That completely makes sense. All right. Switching gears a little bit, honestly, I think this is more just from me to you, and kind of get an idea of what it's like to run a lot of these businesses. You've been through. This is your third business, correct? At least third out there.
Yeah, you could say, yeah.
Yeah. So my whole thing was what did you do in between the two? You were in quite a bit of debt between everything, and I just, in my mind, I don't understand the bounce back, like the. Just from my end to you, like a genuine question. What did you do in between the time to get yourself going on the next project?
So, I mean, my first company, I sometimes count it, I sometimes don't, because it was just like a really early, very badly executed idea. But I guess it does count. It was established as a corporation and then had to close down. Probably the more relatable story was between my previous company, which was this mobile gaming platform called Potatoes. To Slidebean, because that transition was weirder in the sense that, I mean, if you're in a startup hub, if you're in New York, or if you're in California, in the States in general, like people expect entrepreneurs to start companies, see them through, and if they fail, they run out of money, they'll close them down, and that's that. It's done over. And there's nothing weird about that. There's nothing bad about that. People don't think that you're a bad CEO because your company failed. Maybe you ran out of money, and that's very expected. But with my first, with Potatoes, which is the second company technically, we got a lot of press attention. We funded a Kickstarter campaign. Everybody was talking about us, especially in Costa Rica. It was something that we managed to get in front of a lot of people. So it was really weird for this company to go bust only 6-7 months after it launched the product. Probably a year and a half into the company, probably about 6 months after the product launched. It was weird to say that it was dead. Also, I had no job and I was in debt. So I couldn't really, I had to use this, I had to just balance the wording carefully so that I could use the success of this thing to find either a job or to start another business or to recruit a new team. So I had to leverage that a little bit. So what we did is we sort of kept it as active and, posted on social media from time to time, just so people think that this is active and alive. But, and we did this for like 3 months while I was already working with a new team on Slidebean. And then once that transitioned, we sort of said like, hey, no, this is done. We're closing it down because I'm working on this now.
Gotcha. Okay. So it was still live for a while. Is it still live at all? Like the app?
No, it's not. It's not. It was live for a while. Probably a year after we really closed it. It was there because it's just an app. You don't,
that's what I was wondering. Does it cost to keep it up, or are there upkeep costs for that other than just like updates and whatnot and bug fixes?
Not really. Small costs are small server costs and whatnot, but nothing too crazy.
So what was your reasoning for just completely cutting it off instead of trying to gain a little bit of passive income here, there, and everywhere from it?
It wasn't generating that much revenue.
Gotcha.
It wasn't like we realized we were not going to raise money for it. It was not going to happen. I think my co-founder figured that out much faster than I did. And that's, I guess, a lesson learned from this. Like you have to, as a founder, you have to know when to quit because in the end, time is your most limited asset as an entrepreneur. Like the more you're working with this company that probably doesn't have a future, you're wasting time that you could be working on another company. Especially as you get more experienced, that experience is worth a lot. So if you can reapply it to something else quicker, then you're better off. It's literally a count of how many companies can you afford to start before you're too old.
Well, you're not too old as is. Also, happy birthday, by the way.
Thank you.
Yeah, happy birthday, man. Saw that. That's pretty good. You do anything fun other than working, probably?
Yeah. So my last birthday was in the middle of COVID, October last year. So that sucked. So I had to celebrate for 2 birthdays this time. So this is but it was fun.
So definitely a big hangover today.
A little bit.
Well, and you deserve it, man. Like from what I've seen is, as being a founder, you're probably, it's a nonstop 100% grind, is it not?
It's a nonstop 100% grind. That's just the founder life.
I mean, you also have your own personal YouTube channel that I saw that you have yet to post in the last 6 months, man.
But, yeah, man. I really like YouTube as a medium. I really like one of my first sort of direct encounters with what YouTube or what producing content could be was an old friend of mine, Nas Daily. So I met Nas from Nas Daily. He has this pretty cool channel. He started making these 60-second a day videos, like 1 minute a day videos. Okay. And it blew up on Facebook. This was back in probably 15 or so. So I knew Nasir Nas from long before he started this. And kind of seeing him become this really cool influencer, sort of like was probably one of the last pieces of straw that that got me to listen. Hey, like I think I can do this. I think I can produce some cool content. I have some ideas I want to explore. So yeah, my personal channel is it's to explore stuff that's not necessarily covered on Slidebean. It's a bit more experimental. Like I do sometimes travel videos or tech review videos. I'm just trying to find what stuff I'm interested enough in. Right now, and you asked that question before, like on how much time I dedicate to the Slidebean videos. Right now, I think that all of only my video creativity is focused on the Slidebean videos. Mostly because we now have a budget to do some really cool stuff.
Sure, absolutely.
And a team. So, we get to produce some really cool videos. And I still direct probably 1 or 2 videos a month. So like directing those videos and coming up with a concept, writing some of those scripts, like that is really taking all of my free time. I don't have time to make other videos for my channel, but sometimes I made this video on how the whole pandemic coronavirus was similar to this movie Contagion.
Contagion, yeah.
Which is just this random thing I came up with. I was in lockdown first few weeks of the pandemic. So that video's coming up with like 4 million views, which is just insane.
It's nuts.
And it suddenly it spikes. For example, random fact, like it spiked last month. Got like 2 million views because the algorithm figured out that people wanted to watch it.
Nice.
Generated like $2,000-3,000 worth of ads.
Good for
which
you,
get
dude.
transferred,
Holy shit.
Which are going to be transferred to me. Like this week? So that's like an extra birthday present from old work. So it's useful because of that.
Wow. Yo, how was it when that thing first? I've never had a video go viral of mine. I've had it get a couple like tens of thousands of views, but I've never had it. What is the feeling of like that whole, like, you wake up the next morning, you're like, millions of views. What do I do now?
It's pretty crazy. Like I'm sad and torn that it's a video where my face doesn't even show up. It's not the usual type of video I make. There's a lot of conspiracy. Like if your reach is 4 million people, you're gonna have to see some conspiracy stuff going on in the comments.
Yeah.
Well, so that sucks. It's not my favorite video to go viral, but I guess it never is. You can never pick that.
Yeah.
But it's fun. I guess it speaks a little bit about the thumbnail, of how effective thumbnails are. I think that's a good thumbnail that we use there. And I guess it motivates me to say, like, well, yeah, I can't let my personal channel die. I want my own YouTube plaque at home. So I need to get to 100K.
Yeah, man, you're getting there. You're at 22 right now. That's not, I mean, honestly, for just like something that you post to occasionally, that's incredible, man. Like, for real. I've been following a bunch of YouTubers since like day one, and it's really cool to watch people like make something of it. So kudos to you, dude. Seriously. But
man, thanks.
I guess enough about the YouTube stuff. I mean, unless what of everything that you do pertaining to Slidebean or your own personal stuff, is where is it that you like to put your time most? And like, because I the only thing that I see on my end is the YouTube channel and those videos, and from a video standpoint, I know that takes a lot of time. So I'm wondering, is that just kind of something that is a part of your everyday, or is this something that you're actually really into, or if there is something that you're really passionate about within the being the founder of a company, where would that lie?
Yeah, so I mean, I think that the way we've arranged and we've understood. So task distribution at Slidebean. So we're 3 founders, and I think that out of necessity, like, one of us had to become an expert in marketing.
Sure.
Right? When we started, none of us were. Like, I knew a little bit. I had done a little bit of kind of like social media marketing from my previous company and whatnot, but not a growth hacker, not an expert by any means. And somebody sort of had to become that. So my other 2 co-founders are product people from UX and from just engineering side. So it sort of made sense for those 2 guys to deep dive and focus on product, and for me to focus on marketing as a way to grow the company, or sales. It could have been sales depending on who we chose to target, right?
Yeah.
So I sort of had to learn that over the first few months since we started the company, and I used to run the marketing campaigns. So now, like, that distribution has sort of continued like that. Like, I still run I mostly spend my time in the marketing, growth, sales, acquisition, brand awareness, and demand generation for the company. And I've assembled a couple of teams that I work with more directly. We're 33 people in the company now, so it's a ton of people. So the stuff that's related to growth, for the most part, reports to me, either directly or indirectly. Sure. And then the stuff that relates to product is connected to my other 2 co-founders. So it's very exciting. Like, we've been in this company for way longer than the average company, right? Yeah, we're in year 8, I think, now.
Yeah.
Which, for most startups, that's enough to grow and be acquired and be done. But since we're at year 8, like, I would be bored. I would have been bored of this if we hadn't had the chance to come up with new products or come up with new challenges, right? So YouTube is, of course, a new challenge. It's a very exciting one, and one that I oversee directly. And now from the product side, we're building a couple of new products, which has been a challenge of its own, and also motivation for them and the developers and the product people to kind of work on something different. The thinking behind that is, well, now we have all these people that watch us, so we could potentially build more things that they would buy.
So you guys just launched another side company as well, correct? That is I'm blanking
Recurring.
up.
So
Recurring.
it's not
Yes,
a
correct.
side company. Like it still lives within, legally lives within the Slidebean company.
Does it?
But
Okay.
but we decided to choose a different name because the story behind Recurring is ourselves, we're 33 people. We probably spent $40,000 a month on different SaaS tools that we use for our day-to-day ClickUp
Sure.
and Intercom and all this stuff that we use for production. And it's
Hmm.
hard to keep track. Sometimes, like at this point, some of my managers have their own cart and they pay for their own tools and services. And I only find that out at the end of the quarter when I'm reviewing the books, right? So it's like, oh, we've been paying for this for 3 months.
Yeah.
Um, so, and I like to think that we are pretty organized about it. But it still happens that we end up paying for tools that we pay and forgot about, or two teams are paying for tools that have duplicated functionality and they didn't know about it. So that
Sure.
started happening in our stage. We try to find a tool that would solve this and to give us some visibility, and we couldn't find one. So we figured, well, we could build it, and there's a potential business there. So we built it as a separate brand because it doesn't make sense for the SaaS expense tracking thing to be called Slidebean. It
Sure.
doesn't fit very well. So we
Sure.
called it Recurring. We wanted to give it a shot at, well, how good are we at sort of establishing a new brand from scratch? See how that works.
So are you at all like putting any branding and whatnot, promoting within the Slidebean marketing at all with recurring, or are you just
Yeah,
trying to see
yeah.
how it works?
So I mean, they're going to be very directly connected, and there's definitely a lot of cross marketing there. But
Sure.
we think that maybe Recurring could have a lot of its own. Maybe Recurring could be acquired as a standalone product without the rest of the company. So it was important for that database and for that product to be a thing of its own,
Yeah.
separate. But yeah, definitely our secret sauce, if you will, is we're good at marketing. So, and
Sure.
we have all this
Bet you
people
are.
who watch us every month. So it should be easy to sell this to them. It's our thesis.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, even just mentioning it side, like, because you can even just say this video is brought to you by recurring, and then there you go. It's like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
very very simple and easy. But it seems that the majority of your endeavors within the building a business is mainly focused on fixing your own problems. Would you say so? Because that's what
um,
Slidebean was, correct? It was just when you guys were going through a bunch of your pitches and whatnot, you couldn't find like a decent thing to create a nice little pitch deck for.
yeah, I think that good company ideas come from the founders sort of having that experience, that struggle themselves, understanding, how the existing solutions are not great, they might be flawed. So understanding something about the market themselves and then solving it. Like in our case, this was something that I experienced as a manager like 5 years ago. I would not have come up with this idea, and if I had, it would have been probably a shitty product because we didn't really understand how a company would use this to make their life more efficient. So I think that, I think that good company ideas or good problems that companies identify come from their own experience for sure.
Now, how much time did you spend putting into the idea of Slidebean itself? Was it one of those things that like you guys were curating this idea while still building your other product, or was it kind of something once the other product you could see that it was dying? It's like this is the time to start thinking on something new.
Yeah, I think that the idea came. So with that previous company, we did this startup accelerator, Dream It,
Mhm.
in New York, and I remember how all the other founders in the office, we had this shared office space. All of them were struggling with their pitch decks, either on the design or the writing, and then the partners would spend a big amount of time coaching them on writing a better deck on hey, you should put this and not put this. So
Mhm.
even at this stage, these are companies that went through this filter who are on this accelerator. Like these guys are struggling with this.
Mhm.
So this must be a wider problem. We at first thought it was a more like a broader presentation problem, and I still think that traditional presentation software is flawed. But in our case, we sort of decided to double down and focus on this pitch deck thing. I wouldn't say I came up with the current Slidebean idea myself. I could never say that.
Sure. Yeah.
I found this problem, and I talked to Jose and Vini, who are my co-founders today, and I'm like, wait, I found this problem. Like, have you noticed? Have you experienced something similar? And we all agreed that it was a problem. We had sort of experienced it in different areas of our professional careers. So that it made sense to build something to solve that.
Gotcha. Okay. So I guess something that came to mind with all that is like the idea of something just happening overnight. It's not something that occurs. I feel like, at least from my generation, a lot of these success stories you seem to think that things just happen overnight. Ideas come overnight, and you build something. What has been your experience with just even building any single product that you have in the last 10, 15 years of your professional career? How much of it is a lot of those late nights and whatnot, and it's not just the happy-go-lucky, you go viral one time. Like that is something that I'm very passionate about, that idea of like it does take a lot, and there's a lot that goes behind it. Do you have any did Slidebean like start from like $1 million revenue? You know what I mean? Where did you? What do you say? I guess, what do you have to say on that topic? I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. So like we've like I actually come up with a bunch of like product ideas as today, right? We have all this audience, we have all these things that we can't solve, and we haven't found a product that solves them. So we're like, hey, what if we build a product for it?
Mm-hmm.
Probably in the span of these 8 years, we like myself or my co-founders, we've probably come up with 5-ish different products. And I think that we're our own filter as to like, well, is it worth building this or not? Because in the end it takes time, and time is money, and it's money of salaries of people. Now we have this weird advantage. Like normally, if you have an idea and you're on your own, your test to build that is you have to recruit somebody who believes in this idea. But if you're a developer, you could literally build it, like start building it tomorrow. And I've talked to a lot of companies that do that. Like, hey, they came up with this problem. They figured like, hey, I'm going to build something about it. It's fun. They enjoyed building things, but they've been working on this for 6 months, and they still haven't asked anybody if they would use it. And I see that happen sometimes. So in our case, like we have the advantage of having the other co-founders to sort of check and see like, do you think this makes sense? And in the end, it sort of needs to be unanimous. Like all 3 of us need to agree that we're going to spend our own team's time, therefore our own money, on building this thing that we came up with. So we've launched a few products and a few experimental things over the past few years. And yeah, so far, a few of them have been successful, a few have not. But again, that sort of that check of hey, like, would you spend 6 months building this? Recurring, for example, has been probably like a year project for our development team. So it was something that we of course needed to be very much bullish on, to spend that much time and therefore money.
Sure. Is it looking promising on your end from that? Has it made back, or is its MRRs looking like it will be more promising for the year?
So we haven't launched it yet. It's due to launch in 2 or 3 weeks actually. So coming close to it. Took longer than expected to get to what we call a good MVP.
Sure.
But we don't know what's going to happen. It's still an experiment.
Gotcha. All up in the air. Okay. Honestly, I think that's kind of where I'm sitting with this. I really appreciate you taking your time to do this, dude. I like I said, that's still very new to this whole interview stuff. So, and being thrown in the wolves, I just gotta do it.
That's fine. That's fine, man. We've been exploring like honestly, I don't listen to a lot of podcasts, and the reason for that is I can't. I'm shitty at multitasking. I can dedicate my full attention to one thing, not two. So I can work and listen to some music, but I can't work and listen to a podcast because I'm either working or listening to the podcast. Like I can't. I really can't do both. So to me, like listening to a podcast requires me to carve out 30, 45 minutes to listen to this whole thing, which is hard to find 45 minutes in my day that I could be doing, like where I could be just catching up with the pile of work that I always have.
Absolutely. I believe that.
But that being said, like I've learned, or I've started to appreciate the format, the context in which you can listen to a podcast. So we've been experimenting with it. We're launching or relaunching our podcast in the next few days.
Is there a specific theme or topic you guys talk about, or is it kind of just interviewing other entrepreneurs? Or
No, so we're going to start the podcast on sort of telling or retelling some of the company forensic stories that we found.
Okay.
I think
Smart.
like we've experimented with interviews. Maybe I'm not that good at interviews. I've sort of started to come to that conclusion.
Okay.
Maybe I'm not that good at interviewing people because I always, I don't know why. Maybe a combination of reasons. But at least our interviews, like the ones we've done on YouTube, even though we have the audience and the subscribers, they haven't performed very well.
Sure.
So we'll see. We're testing the podcast with just stories, these company stories.
That sounds like a great idea, to be honest. I mean, all of the what is it, like the horror story genre and all like the crime stuff, it's pretty big these days. So you can probably scoot on into that one. Other than that, just a personal question, at least from me to you. What's your day look like, man, on a typical day? Like seriously, I work for 3 different companies doing video production, and I am like trying my best to schedule myself. Do you have any like words of wisdom or anything that I should be doing that I may not be doing? I mean, you got like 10 years on me, man. Like what did you learn in those 10 years?
So my calendar is almighty, right? Like everything has to be on the calendar, and that's the only way I can organize it. A couple people in the company have access to it, and they can play around with my meetings and rearrange them if they can. But normally, a day looks like waking up at 5:30-ish to get my daughter ready for school, and then I'll head out to do some tennis. I play tennis, so that's my only exercise during the day. So I'll do that in the morning. Try to be in the office sitting working by 7:30 or 8. Sometimes a little later. Try to be as efficient and as focused work during that time. So I try to, for example, arrange meetings in certain days. So Wednesdays, for example, are my most intense meeting days, but that makes the other days with less meetings, which means I can get more stuff done. Sure. I try to be done by 6. I mean, I'm never done. Like, there's always stuff that I have to do, but I try to kind of wrap the day at 6 so I can spend some time with my family. And then if there's work pending, I will take that from, say, 10 to 12 or 1.
Gotcha.
That's it.
Okay.
And my weekends are sacred. Like, that's the one thing I've learned. The only way I can keep myself sane is weekends are absolutely sacred. No work on weekends.
Okay, I was gonna actually ask that because like right now it's literally like 6-7 days a week. I'm finding myself in the office, and I guess like during your 20s you were doing a lot of this as well. And was it finding these methods of like, because you obviously have a wife and kids and stuff, so you had relationships throughout. So finding that work-life balance was that a pain in the ass to some extent? Like where was your focus?
Probably if I didn't have a family, I would most definitely spend more time at work. Like, I mean, for me, work is fun. Like, look at my personal YouTube channel. Like, I really enjoy making videos. Like, I would take my free time to do that because I really enjoy it. Family time sort of forces me to be away from work, and that's a good thing. And there's always exceptions to this, and when there's a lot of work, I had like a really big sprint of work through August and early September where I wouldn't go home. I wouldn't take this like 6 to 9 slot every single day. Like a couple days a week, I just like, hey guys, I have to stay in the office. Yeah. I live like 5 blocks away from my office, which is cool. That means I can go home for lunch and at least spend some time with them there. But yeah, like it varies. But like the normal routine should look like or should have those slots reserved.
Gotcha. All right, then I'm gonna open my Google Calendar after this and start putting stuff in. Honestly, dude. Well, hey, Caya, honestly, man, thank you so much for sitting down and chatting with me. I learned quite a bit from your background and got a little insight on the business world from a very big businessman, and a YouTube star, a soon-to-be YouTube star, million subscriber plaque.
That's I like that. That's just a selfish goal now. Like we of course want the million plaque. Like we're not going to be stuck halfway through the million. We have to get there. But man, no, it's been really fun. It's been really fun. Thanks a lot for having me.
Awesome, dude. Thanks. Have a great one.
Cool.
Peace.